try to make everybody happy in business, you're almost guaranteed to make yourself miserable. In selling your business, that's certainly the case. Not everybody's going to be your friend in this. And so, today's video, we want to go over 3 tricks you don't want to fall for in selling your business. The first of these is selling your business for a job. Now, in almost every transaction, there's going to be some post-transaction transition period and consideration. And so when you're selling your business, there's going to be 4 main considerations: the valuation, the structure, the transition period, and the stakeholder considerations. And it's this structure, what's at closing, what's over time, and it's this transition period. What are the duties or obligations of the owners on a post-transaction basis that things can get very tricky in. So if there is a time period in which ownership must remain involved with the business post-transaction, it needs to be defined very clearly. It needs to have a specific timeline on it. It needs to be compensated as if it were a job separate and aside from the consideration of the deal, and it can't be entirely tied to the deal consideration or the structure. These cannot be golden handcuffs. This is not indentured servitude. The willingness of a seller to stay and fully and seamlessly transition the business has its limits and need to be appropriately structured. Similarly, the earnout of a deal or the component of the deal that's post-transaction cannot be so arduous as such that there's more stress on the seller than there was even before selling the company. And if there's a post-transaction component of the deal consideration, it should be fairly easily earned through the ongoing momentum or continued consistent performance of the business. And we've had many videos where we've talked about earn-out consideration and structures and things like that, so we'll leave that for another video. However, trick number 1 not to fall for is do not sell your business for a job. If there's a post-transaction timeline of your involvement, if there's a post-transaction part of the deal, an earn-out, a seller note, things like that, make sure you know exactly how it's going to work out, make sure you know exactly what your duties are, and make sure that the totality of that is not going to be more stressful or cumbersome than if you just kept the business in the first place. Now, the second trick not to fall for in selling your business is that you are not looking for a loan. People will say, of course not, I'm selling the business. Yes, however, if the ultimate conclusion of your sale of the business is contingent on someone else getting a loan being capable to buy the business, then effectively you and the buyer are now seeking a loan. And all of a sudden, you're going to be answering all the questions for their bank process. You're going to be bending over backwards, and I can assure you that there'll be many asks throughout the process of buying the company where they say, well, the bank really needs this, the bank really needs that, the bank really needs you to do this, really needs you to do that. And as a seller, these are things that we push back on. And so in an ideal situation, you want to find a buyer for a company that can write a check and buy it. An institutionally capitalized private equity firm, a large strategic with a large treasury to pull capital from to buy your company. If they want to go refinance the company after they buy it in some sort of fashion, let them go do that. But you do not want your deal contingent upon a loan. Look, there are situations in which there's no alternatives, and that is the only buyer or only audience that's going to be there. But if you have the ability to avoid it, avoid it. You say, okay, you can go get a loan, go figure it out, but we're not going to be subject to the same stress as you are in that exercise. Buy the company in cash, go take out a loan against it in the future in some other way if you want as part of your broader portfolio or however. But we're selling a business, we're not looking for a loan. Again, there are some unavoidable situations where every buyer for your company is going to need a loan to close it, and you're not going to be able to avoid that. But if you can avoid it, that should be a material differentiating factor from the prospective acquirers for a business. The third trick not to fall for in selling your business is don't give up the right to walk. Now, whether it's via indications of interest, letters of intent, exclusivity agreements, diligence periods, all of these things can be defined, and you can and should agree mutually from being the seller as well as for the buyer that you are going to exclusively pursue the deal once you have terms agreed upon. However, you should always reserve the right to walk from a deal if you don't feel like it's going the right way. Because at the end of the day, that's really going to be your leverage going into the diligence process. Now, people will say, oh, there should be a breakup fee. With the rare occasion in sub $100 million deals, most deals from $1 million to $100 million do not have a breakup fee. The buyer will have dead deal costs that they have to incur, such as the spending that they've done with accountants, with attorneys, with things of that. And so it's not a free proposition for them. However, there's not going to be some big chunk of money that needs to be paid to the seller if the buyer decides not to pursue the deal. Therefore, The process needs to be managed very, very intelligently such that the seller is not creating a distraction and always preserves the right to walk away from the deal. And people will say, hey, why do you want to walk? We're all on the same page. We're all going to be friends, this and that. Everybody's best friends until things go sideways. And look, this is not to disparage any particular acquirers. The acquirer community is what makes the world go around, and there is a tremendous amount of honorable, great people, but there are also some bad ones, and we try to avoid them like the plague, and we are successful in doing that 99.99% of the time. However, the right to walk from a deal, the right to say, you know what, we've had enough, we're going to focus on growing the business and we're not going to pursue this deal, will give you leverage. And even if you don't think you need leverage, I can say it's like having a blanket or a water bottle in a car. You don't know you need it until the car breaks down. It's like they say with air. No one thinks about it until it's not there. You need to preserve the leverage you can throughout a deal. And as a seller, you have to be strategic about the ability to walk. Not that you want to, but that you can if you need to. So, to recap today's video, you're selling your business, 3 tricks you do not want to fall for. 1 is selling your business, your ownership, for a job. If there's post-transaction involvement, which there likely will be, have it very granular, structured, defined. If there's going to be post-transaction consideration, again, defined, structured intelligently in a way that it's not going to tie your hands to having to go and do a thing every single day. Secondly, don't put yourself in a position that you're looking for a loan if you can avoid it. Now again, some situations, the only buyers that are going to be there are those that need financing to acquire the business. You'll see that in a lot of SBA, search fundy type things. But if you have an audience of institutionally capitalized people that can write checks, which we try to position most of our companies in front of, whether that be a strategic or a financial acquirer, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be subject to their ability to get financing. It's hard enough to get things over the finish line as it is, and you don't want to then be pinned under, well, the bank needs X, Y, Z. Thirdly, preserve the right to walk. I don't care how in love everybody is the day after an LOI is signed, in which 99% of those are going to get to closing, but you need to preserve the right to walk because that is what's going to give you leverage, should you need it, throughout the exercise, among other things. And so, would we love to sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya and say everything works out perfectly and everyone is perfect in their behavior and does absolutely the right thing 100% of the time? Yes, wouldn't that be nice? But what was the expression? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, what a wonderful Christmas it'd be. And not to paint a dour picture of things, right? The vast majority of situations are going to end well. However, we never think it's a bad idea to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. As such, there's certain tricks you want to avoid in the process of selling your business. These are 3 of them to keep in mind. I hope the week's getting off to a good start. Keep pushing forward. God bless. See you next time.